Good afternoon. My name is Ed Sachs, and welcome to CollaborEAT Live, a production of my collaborative team. CollaborEAT Live is a 15-minute conversation presented every Wednesday, providing content to both professionals and the public on a variety of topics relating to the collaborative process. Today, we welcome Don Moll and Chad Scalf. Don is a divorce mortgage specialist with Centennial Lending Group. He works with family lawyers, mediators, financial professionals, mental health professionals, and their clients by providing due diligence assistance to help making an informed decision regarding keeping or selling the house in divorce. His mission is to help neutralize emotions and reduce acrimony, prevent post-divorce disputes, and avoid legal and financial mistakes associated with marital settlement agreements. He holds a degree in economics from the University of Florida, and he's been in the financial service industry for over 22 years. Chad Scalf is a real estate agent with Compass Realty, and he's got over 40 years of knowledge, 30 years of marketing expertise, and all the technical advantage that a company like Compass has to offer. He earned his Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Vanderbilt University and the designation of Real Estate Collaborative Specialist/Divorce from Professor Kelly Murray. He provides both the due diligence and the special skills, due diligence for informed decisions, and the special skill set of working in what can be a highly emotional environment. Gentlemen, welcome.
Welcome, Ed. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Ed.
I
Appreciate
love
it.
having you. Love having you. So, in collaborative matters, we often have real estate issues. Tell me what this value-added service is that you offer to the collaborative world.
Sure. What Chad and I do is we work with mediators, family lawyers, their clients, in really completing the case file regarding the house and the secured house debt. And we do this through what we call an enhanced house due diligence. We focus on 4 key disciplines. And the real reason that we do it is, first of all, divorce this house, as Chad mentioned, founded by Professor Kelly Murray, who holds degrees from Stanford, Harvard Law, and she's a professor of law at Vanderbilt. And she's actually the leading academic researcher on divorce and elder real estate. So she enjoys doing the research. Those are her words, in terms of case by case, state by state, I should say, and where there's been legal and financial mistakes. So we have that in terms of our foundation. But divorce this house, the whole genesis is from a consumer protection standpoint. We want to make sure that people are making an informed rather than an emotional decision regarding either keeping or selling the house. We do it to prevent the legal and financial mistakes that we've seen occur. And then finally, this is the biggest challenge that most of our legal colleagues have wrapped their arms around, is as far as what's this going to cost. And being the loan officer, I'm bound by the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, which means I can't charge a fee for what it is that I do. Chad cannot charge a fee for what it is. If there's going to be a listing or a right sizing or a new loan origination or refinance, we simply ask to be considered for the transaction.
So, Don, you guys, you're talking about the real estate and the mortgage. So, what are you offering that we're not able to provide, we as the professionals in a collaborative process? We've got 2 attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
You usually have a financial professional who's fairly well experienced in the divorce area, along with the mental health professional. What is it that you guys are providing? And when you talk about due diligence, what kind of due diligence are you performing?
Sure. So we really categorize it into one of 2 situations. Either the house is going to be kept or the house is going to be sold. Where the house is kept, sometimes what we'll hear is, and this is more anecdotally because there's not cases that we can look up, but where they say, well, they're just going to sell the house and split the proceeds. But what we're missing here, and Ed, you're a CPA, is that marital balance sheet. And so one thing that is missing from that equation is liens. Liens happen. Liens legally reduce equity. Therefore, that marital balance sheet is off. And so we have seen cases where they've failed to execute a title and lien search, and then one of the parties goes to refinance the home, only to find out that the other party had accumulated tax liability, which resulted in the lien being placed on the house, and therefore that spouse could not refinance the house, and that's what was agreed upon in the marital settlement agreement. So that's just one scenario on keeping the house. If the house is, selling the house, if they're going to be keeping the house, typically what we see is that let's just say that she wants to keep the house, and there's going to be, well, probably the hold harmless where she's going to keep the house and make the payments. But we've seen mistakes in terms of where and when, in the language of that marital settlement agreement, in terms of her home ownership eligibility. And I can give you a couple examples. There was a case in Florida that comes to mind where he agreed to move out, and Chad and I use the terms the house spouse and the out spouse. So in this situation, she's the house spouse, he's the out spouse. She agreed to make the mortgage payments. Well, in this situation, no one had bothered to check to see if she would be eligible for a recognized loan program. So now he has signed this marital settlement agreement, which is binding, and property division is permanent, because we know that it can be very expensive if the mistake is made, if it can be fixed at all. In this situation, so she then failed to qualify for a recognized loan program. And to add insult to injury, he went ahead and divested the title via quit claim deed. So now she has not been making the mortgage payments. It's on his credit. So his credit is now plummeted. And I've got a FICO study that shows that just simple as 30 days late can be extremely damaging to your credit score. And then the amount of time that it takes to get back to where you were. And so in this situation, now he is legally responsible to make payments on a house that he doesn't even own. So so that's in a mortgage situation where we see that hold harmless, and then the being able to force the sale. We've seen situations where there's been contingencies, and even the contingencies are gained. There's another case in Florida that comes to mind where he could force the sale. She was more than 30 days late. Well, she was never more than 30. She was 30 days late. She just wasn't more than 30 days late. Well, again, going back to that FICO score, in this case, if he had a 780 credit score, just 30 days late, that's going to plummet. And Ed, for those that aren't familiar, the credit score range is 350 to 850, 850 being the best. He went down to like a 680, like that. And it's going to take him on average 3 years to get back to where he was. So, and that has an impact, not just on secured house financing, but any kind of financing. We've seen situations where with the, there was a case actually in Utah. You said you're in Arizona right now, but there's a Utah case where they're getting divorced. He's the out spouse, and she actually agreed to keep the house. He said, and they had some commercial properties, think strip malls. Well, so he said, sign the marital settlement, he would refinance the properties. Well, between the time of the final and when he signed and when he agreed to it, he had lost some tenants. And so you know where this is going. He went to refinance and he was denied. And what the court said was that he could have checked with a lender to see if the proposed collateral would have been sufficient for the refinance. And then he ran this thing all the way up to the Supreme Court, which was denied cert. So the point is, the takeaway from that is, even though the court didn't say you need to check with the lender, that's the takeaway from it.
So what you're providing, Don, on your side is almost like a pre-qual. If there's going to be a refinancing, you can help do some pre-qualifying and make sure that, in fact, we can do that, what we're proposing in the MSA. Is that correct?
And that's part of it. But I don't want you to think that this is some sort of pre-qualification conveyor belt. I'm talking right now, I've given examples where she's going to keep the house. How about a situation where he's going to be moving out and he agrees to an alimony scheme? Well, one of the top reasons why divorce mortgages are denied is because the debt to income ratio is too high. Doesn't matter about how much you make. If you've got debt obligations that are more than, say, on average 50%, you're not going to qualify for a recognized loan program. So in this situation, he agreed to a particular alimony scheme, signed it, and then went to qualify for a loan. And the lender is going to look at that alimony as one of two ways: either a reduction in qualified income or a debt obligation. You want it to be reduction in qualified incomes, because if they view it as a debt obligation, that debt to income ratio can get maxed out. In this situation, his particular lender, viewed it as a debt obligation, and therefore his debt to income ratio is too high. He was now home ownership ineligible. Wouldn't even want to know that prior to signing that. So again, on the divorce mortgage guidance, that part of our 4 prongs as far as the disciplines, that's what we do on the mortgage side.
Chad, I know you're on the real estate side. Tell me what you offer.
Well, basically what happens is we have a team approach, and it's trying to create the full knowledge so that you can make these informed decisions. And so basically my job is to bring in all those four disciplines in, basically bringing Don in as and sitting down and going over the mortgage scenarios, making sure that those are in place, that so someone understands what it's going to cost now, can they qualify, all of those things. But we also have we bring in an insurance provider, because you need to know, really each person has their own insurance, just same way that you have a FICO score, you have an insurance score that follows the person, not necessarily the home. And so the cost of that can be different for each individual. And so we want to make sure that that's good. We also want to make sure that there aren't any things out there that could, maybe there was in the case of insurance, that there could have been they had a claim that was done just prior or during the process of the collaboration, right? Well, we want to make sure all of those things get addressed, because those impact the value of the home, right? And so we also look at the title to make sure that that is correct, make sure that there aren't any of these liens or anything that would affect the value. We go through conditions and inspections of the home, because if your roof or you have water damage, or you have your systems aren't what they should be, then that materially impacts the value. And certainly we go into appraisals and market analysis and making sure that it's not just a estimate and a mortgage statement that determines what the value is. And so all of those things come into play. And so that's what pretty much what I bring to the table, is to make sure that all of those elements get addressed. And that way we do have that full knowledge. So we have the understanding of whether or not you want to keep it or whether you want to get rid of it. And then the question of, can you? And so that's what we do.
So you're like a full team available for any of the real estate issues, whether it be as simple as appraisal, but if there is going to be some mortgage. I know that that's one of the areas, the mortgage area, that causes great concern. So in that way, you are helping us to make sure that that agreement isn't setting up for failure, correct?
Right.
Exactly.
The last thing we hate to see, Ed, is someone, let's just say she agrees to keep the house and then 6 months later she has to sell it because she didn't understand the holding costs associated with that house. I was referred a case where she wanted to keep the house. They were both on the mortgage. And so she's a nurse, and she was able to qualify for carrying the note and the mortgage. And so I said, hey, listen, you're gonna be able to do it. I don't want an answer right now. I want you to think about this. This is a big decision. And so I said, take a few days. So she called me back and she said, look, I've been thinking about it. And, all this time, he and I have not only covered the mortgage together, but also all of the costs associated that you really kind of highlighted that I didn't think about. I don't know if I want to do that and sleep, I don't know if I'd be able to sleep at night. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and sell the house. So, and that's when I called the attorney that I was working with, and she said, well, I'm sorry, you're not going to be doing the refi. I said, no. I said, Annie, you got to understand, we just accomplished our mission. And that was, we neutralized the emotion. And now she made an informed, educated decision on keeping that house. And that's mission accomplished.
So you can be brought in, as I see it, early on in the case to help through it, or even be brought in towards the end if necessary, just to look at the agreement and help analyze the agreement from a financial point of view to make sure that, they're going to be able to do what they're promising in these agreements.
Yeah, and that's key, Ed. It's pre-mediation, because again, we know that property settlement is permanent. And so there, if you can't even fix it, it's going to be very expensive. So that's our value.
And again, no charge other than for any services that are ultimately provided. Obviously, if you have an inspection service that comes in or an appraisal company that you bring in, obviously those. But in terms of looking at these types of things, your hope is to maybe land the clients later.
Yeah, and we're think of us, we become very good friends with the paralegals, because we are actually wrangling a lot of those documents that they normally would have to go gather. So it's just, hey, and I had someone say, this allows us to punt this part of discovery to you and your team, and then allows us to focus on our lawyer only activities.
And when you have and you're making those decisions based on information rather than emotion sometimes, it helps the whole process. So so we really bring that value to it also.
Great. Gentlemen, I want to thank you very much. Very informative, and certainly something that all collaborative professionals should be concerned about in the agreements that we prepare and in providing this service in the collaborative spirit. So again, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. If you would like to be a guest on CollaborEAT Live, email us at info@mycollaborativeteam.com or reach out to us on social media. Thank you, and join us next Wednesday.